For those of you who don't know me, I am Cara Putman, and I am going to be the host tonight. Welcome back to the Christian Fiction Reading Challenge. We are so delighted to have you here. We have a special guest, Rick Acker, here with us. He's joining us along with Colleen Coble, and they are the co-authors of the March book, When Justice Comes. So I don't know if you've read any of their other books. I know that once you read When Justice Comes, you are probably now hooked. All right. So, Colleen and Rick, are you ready to talk
We
about?
are ready, Cara.
Are you ready, Rick?
Ready.
Okay, awesome. So, before we start talking about When Justice Comes, which is the third and final book in the Tupelo Grove series, I thought it would be nice to talk just a little bit about how did the two of you get paired? Because it's not normal, really, to
No,
have
it's
a
not.
writing pair like this. And yet
Yeah,
for you two, it works seamlessly. So why don't you take just a moment to talk about how you guys came together to start being this dynamic writing duo?
it was my idea. So I had always thought it would be fun to write a legal suspense, but I knew I didn't know anything about it. Um, and I have known Rick a long time. We're both on the board of ACFW, and I really liked his books. But you also have to have somebody that you know is you can't have any ego with it at all. So when you're doing a joint thing, and I had one night I got a text from Rick saying my Pokemon Go app is suggesting you as a friend on Pokemon Go. Are you playing Pokemon? And I said, why, yes, I am with my grandsons. And so he added me as a friend, and we formed this little texting group. And he was always so patient with all of our insane questions. And I would ask him one question and then forget all about, it just would not compute. And I'd be asking him the same question again a day or two later. And he was always just so calm and patient about it. And I'd always liked his books. And I thought, it might be fun to write some sort of an attorney sort of book. And so one night I texted him and I said, what would you think about writing a book together? And he said, well, I've never thought about it, but let's talk about it. And the idea kind of came because he was talking about that he was going to go to his tree farm in Possum Neck, Mississippi. and uh, and
Real
and so
place.
that whole southern thing just kind of. I'm actually at the location right now, by the way, guys. I'm in Gulf Shores, so I was eating dinner on the Bon Secours 2 nights ago, so that's super fun. Rick, why don't you take it from here?
Sure. I had sort of like the mirror image, experience from Colleen. I knew her. We got along really well. I knew her writing and really liked her books, and we were, um, we had very similar styles. But as I'm sure all the veteran authors in here know, there have been plenty of stories of people who started off writing together as friends and did not wind up that way.
Hmm.
So I really had to think and pray about it. Nothing about Colleen, but just these horror stories we'd all heard. But the more we started thinking about what a story would look like together and how it might work, um, the more I really got comfortable with it and thought and got really excited about it. And it's been great fun. Of course, we and by we I mean Colleen had to persuade the publisher to do this as well. And Colleen, do you want to tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, I knew that going in that it was probably not going to be an easy sell because publishers don't like to rock the boat when things are going well. And so I planned this trip down to my publishers, and I got everybody in the big room together, and we'd already plotted out our, well, as plotted as we did
I
have.
was going to say, you are not a plotter.
You know me well, Kara. No, I am not. And uh, so I got them all in the room and pitched the idea to them. And there was a little bit of a hesitancy at first, but they saw how excited I was. And they said, okay, we'll give it a try. And they again warned me, and I passed it along to Rick about the disasters that they have seen in the past where the people aren't friends when it's over. And I think that's one of the things that helped is maybe that we weren't necessarily besties or anything going in initially. We knew and respected each other,
Mhm.
and but we didn't have the fear that it would wreck our relationship either too badly because we were still kind of feeling our way through it all, and it has worked out great. Neither one of us have really a big ego. We just want the best story. So most of the time we forget who came up with which idea in the story. I'll say something to Rick about, yeah, that was a great idea of yours. And he'll say, I think you did that one. And we don't even know. We don't even know most of the time. So,
So when you think about that, every story starts with a spark. So
Mhm.
Rick, do you remember like how you guys came up with, in particular, like Tupelo Grove? I mean, we could talk about I Think I Was Murdered too, but how did you come up with that initial what if? What was the spark that got this series kind of kicked off?
It really was Possum Neck, Mississippi.
Yeah.
We started, Colleen wanted to do something deep south. I'm like, I spent some time down there. And she wanted to do a university setting. And, I've had been at several gorgeous old universities. And so it was kind of channeling, what would one of those look like if it started falling on hard times. And the story just grew from there. Even the name Tupelo Grove, I think, was a blend. You wanted something with Tupelo, and I suggested Grove, and that became the
Mhm.
name of the series.
That's right. That's exactly right. And uh, I had I had just walked through the loss of a child with a friend in Arizona, and she had mentioned that the one thing that she knew was that oftentimes that results in the
Mm.
parents, the couple splitting up because of the trauma, and that she and her husband decided they were going to make sure that that didn't happen to them, and they were going to talk through everything. So uh, I wanted something that was really keeping this couple apart, but a really strong second chance. I write because of emotion. I love to be able to really pull a great emotion, an emotional story out. It's not just about the suspense. I love suspense and I
Mhm.
love romance and I love relationship, but it's more about uh, examining what happens in a situation like that and how do you come back together when the trauma has been so hard and so together we kind of figured out what was keeping them apart and how Hez turned to alcohol at first and there was just so many layers to all of it that it was super fun to write. People often have asked me what's my favorite story, and I always say that's like asking me what's my favorite
Yeah.
child. But I have to say, I love this Tupelo Grove series. It's my favorite. I mean, I just love all the layers and the deep family secrets and all of that. So,
Well, and there are a lot of secrets and lots of different just layers and threads and things going on in it. But every book tends to have like that problem child scene or chapter, the one that you're just like beating your head against a wall. Did When Justice Comes have one of those where you were like, if I were doing this on my own, I don't know that I would have gotten through it, but maybe because it was two of you writing it, you were able to really wrestle through it better?
um, did you have a scene, Rick, that you thought that we had a problem necessarily?
Or you
Not
guys just had
really.
this amazing experience?
It worked real well. And part of it was, because of the way our technique works,
Yeah.
um, Colleen is, as you noted, a pantser. I'm a plotter. So what we tend to do is we will have, we'll figure out like the big plot milestones in advance, and then I'll outline scenes like to the next with working with my wife, we'll outline scenes up to like the first plot milestone, send those off to Colleen, and then she'll have feedback, and she will often or she will from time to time say something like,
You can
"Don't
say
hate
off,
me."
but it's okay.
Yeah. Or we need, off-roading alert because she senses that the story needs a little something, and then we'll work that through. So
Mhm.
because we have that rolling, usually like between 3 and 7 scene outline, where we've kind of thought it through in advance, and we've like debugged it. We typically don't get stuck, which has been really nice.
Yeah.
That
And
happens a
that's,
lot by myself though. So
well, exactly. And that's the beauty
you
of
know,
having,
Cara, you
yeah.
know.
Well, and that's the beauty of having a writing partner where you're
Yeah,
intimately involved in the story together, is you've got like that person that you can work through it all with.
yeah.
So there's when you think about these books, there's so much going on. You've got all these family law issues, and you've got the things going on with the university, and you've got the drug trafficking. I mean, there's just so much going on. What kind of research did you have to do? Was there something that you were like, oh my gosh, this is so fascinating, but I just can't use it in the book because it would drag down the story?
You know, that is true. There's especially with the artifact stuff, you know, there
Mhm.
was just so much of that, and you couldn't, there's just no way to put it all in. But that was very fascinating and interesting to me, and very Indiana Jonesish. I would like to have put more of that in, but that wasn't the story. So, you know, we had to, like you said, you have to balance what those threads are and where you're going with them.
Yeah, I
How
was going
about
to say the same thing. I grew up, my mom has been very big into American archaeology and Mesoamerican archaeology. So it's all this fascinating stuff, all these fascinating stories and artifacts and civilizations. And we were only able to touch on it in the book because Colleen's right. It wasn't about that.
but I could see where that would be so fun to go down that. And you're like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
this almost feels like national treasure at a certain level. And
Yeah.
you're saving the university, or are you? And what's going to happen? And all those different layers and threads and things. But Colleen, you also started hitting on these books have a deeper level. They have a deeper thread. There's more to them than just it's a good story. So, in your readers, for both of you, are often looking for that. They're looking for that richer meaning, that richer layer. So, without giving away spoilers, what's a core spiritual or emotional theme that you hope stays with your readers long after they close the cover and they set the book aside or give
Uh,
it to a friend?
for me, it was that whole theme of forgiveness that ran through, and how do you get there when the pain is so bad that
Mhm.
really you want to run, but you know, how do you come to all of that?
How
Yeah, I would
about for
say
you,
that.
Rick?
Yeah, the forgiveness and the dark side of that is revenge when you're
Yeah.
not willing to forgive. And those two themes, watching how different people, like genuinely wronged people, will choose one path or the other.
Mhm.
And the impact it has on them, and also the idea of generational sin, that
Mhm.
what happens at the sins of the grandfathers are visited on the fathers and mothers, and those sins are visited on the children, and seeing how that feeds through was something that again I really enjoyed being able to do over a span of 3 books. Really
Mhm.
Mhm.
play those out.
We would
Well,
never
and
have been able to do that book or that story without there being multi books in it. You could never do
yeah.
that, I don't think, in one standalone. There were just too many things.
Well, and you had that really being able to see through multiple families how that
Mhm.
played out.
Yeah.
And that would have been really hard to do without a Gone with the Wind type of
And their
length of book.
choices that they made, you know, that's the thing with sin in general, and revenge and forgiveness. It all boils down to individual choices that we make in our journey, and it can lead us in wildly divergent paths. One good and one bad, and some mediocre, you know, but it's our own choices.
Absolutely. Okay, so Robin, did you have a question? Okay. Okay, so on character growth, since we're talking about, the characters and kind of the themes and things like that, which character in this book surprised you the most? And you probably have different answers on this with the way they grew or the decisions they made as you were writing.
You want to go first, Rick?
Sure. Some of the character growth we had planned out, like Savannah, for example, her
Mhm.
character arc we'd planned out from the beginning. Same thing for Hez. The one that I'm trying to think how to say this without giving a spoiler.
I know,
Um,
that's what I was thinking too.
there is, I'll say, one of the older characters in the book who started off as a small um, bit player almost in book one really wound up growing and changing and being a key to reconciliation by the end of book 3.
Mhm.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yep.
Same for you, Colleen? Same
Yes,
person?
that's why I threw him to the wolves and made him go first, because I was trying to think of how I was going to say it without giving away what it was, and you handled that well. But yes, that character growth there, and really even the villain, which I won't come out and say,
Mhm.
the watching his path. And honestly, we weren't sure if we were going to kill him or were we going to have some other kind of uh situation going on, and we weren't sure
Yeah.
a little bit, and it kind of
No,
we just
he and
kind of
another
come along
character
to the
had a
dark
number of
side a little
near-death
bit
experiences.
on a few things, with the pantsing. So
You're like, how much can I torture him
yeah,
without like going too far?
that's right.
So when you think about Savannah and Hez, if this book were going to be picked up by Netflix or someone, do you have an idea of who you would want to be like, oh, grab this person to play them in the movie or the miniseries?
I really don't, because I am a book reader and I don't know the actors very well. Yeah, I know a lot of authors maybe start out with a specific actor in their head of what that character is going to look like. I don't even I can't even find a picture that is necessarily who they're going to look like. I kind of try, but I can never really match what's in my head. If it was going to be the streaming story or whatever, I just hope that they would um, make her look like Savannah and Hez. Finding somebody that looks like them in my head is a problem. But Savannah's got that beautiful auburn hair that I love, and so I would want her to look like that and not be blonde or brunette, because to me she's got that beautiful auburn hair. So
How about you, Rick? Did you have someone in mind when you were writing them?
I really didn't. I like Colleen. I mean, I knew what they looked like, um, but I was not picturing a real person.
Okay. All right. So last question before we open it up for the pre-submitted and all the questions that have been piling in throughout our conversation. For readers who are going to finish the book tonight or have already finished it and they're like, what do we read next? From each of you, what would you recommend as a book that if they liked and loved the Tupelo Grove series, what else should they read from you?
I
And
think I Was Murdered would be
Yeah.
a good
yeah,
one. So we loved writing that, and that was super fun. We were actually, fun fact, we were working on book 2 in the Tupelo Grove series when we came up with the idea for I Think I Was Murdered. And I said, Rick, hold the presses. I'm going to tell Amanda about this. That's our editor, publisher. And I suspect she will have us stop working on the second book in the series and go to work on I Think I Was Murdered. And that is exactly what happened. So,
it was so timely. I'm not surprised that's
yeah.
what happened.
Yeah, it's a fun little fact. I had the kernel of the idea. I mean, the book wound up being very different, but I had the kernel of an idea like 7 or 8 years ago and pitched it, and nobody wanted it because it was science fiction back then.
Yeah.
For I Think I Was Murdered.
Yeah.
And but now it's all real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I read another book in the last year that was that same type of idea, only bigger scale. And I was like, yep, now it's near future fiction. And
Mhm.
it's crazy,
Mhm.
absolutely crazy. And any books of yours individually that you would recommend that people try?
Um,
Sanctuary. I mean, the Sanctuary
yeah, my
series, because those
Sanctuary
are so
series
connected.
is connected,
Mhm.
pretty tightly, really, with this one. So that would be a good one. And the third book in that series will be out in July. And I'm
And
right
your
here
Pelican
in the
Harbor
middle,
books
like I
too.
said. So I'm wandering around saying, okay, there's that setting and there's that setting. And
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and that series wraps up really well as well. You did a good job. And
oh, thank
all
you.
the cameos from both of them, I was just
Yeah.
like, ah, so fun, so fun. Rick, how about you? Any of your books that you're like, oh, if you like these, you should try?
Yeah, people may remember the character Bruno Rubinelli, the hacker. He's actually from a solo book of mine called The Enoch Effect. So if you like the crossover effect, and that's actually my personal favorite of my solo books. So that's what I'd
Awesome.
recommend.
Very cool. All right. So now we're going to open it up. I think Robin and Becky have the questions that were pre-submitted and those that have been rolling in. So we'll turn it over to them and then I'll pop back in with a preview of what's coming next month, which is Robin Lee Hatcher's newest book.
Okay, well, I'll go first, and we'll try not to do something that you've already answered. So if we do, just remind me. Here was the first question. Did you feel the book contained too much violence?
I didn't, but yeah, I like suspense. So, there's going to be some of that in there, unfortunately, but maybe for some people, unfortunately. But I like suspense. So I read quite a lot in the general market, and, we don't ever get nearly as much violence as you get there. But, and we try to be cognizant of, we don't have guts hanging out and stuff like that. So, how about you, Rick?
Yeah, it's the same. I mean, I also read a lot of general market suspense, and yeah, I felt, I mean, violence for its own sake is, I don't want to put that in a book, but in this book there were a number of scenes, not a huge number I felt, but where violence or referring to past violence was necessary in order to further the plot. So yeah, I agree.
Okay, here's another question for you both. What's the next location in which you're setting a book?
Rick, go ahead. You with that one.
Well, for we are currently writing one set in Alaska, and we're going to take our families up there for a trip in the not too distant future.
July?
Yeah. But for the next book that's coming out, it's a return to North Haven, which was the setting for I Think I Was Murdered. And we're really excited about that one. It's called She Will End This, and it comes out in November.
But it was super fun to write, and it has a great premise behind it where um, Britt finds out her dad is not who she thought he was, and I mean, and it starts off with a bang with she's being kidnapped by a robo taxi. So it's super fun. We had a blast writing it, and our editors absolutely loved it. So I can't wait to get it in your hands and see what you think.
Awesome.
All right. The next question, well, you answered the one that was immediately next, which was about when the final book in Sanctuary series was released, and that was July. So I'll go to the next one. Who brought the idea of a location of an Irish pub called Max? Our family goes there whenever we visit Piccolo.
Pensacola, I think is
Okay.
what they
Oh,
were.
Pensacola. Okay.
Yeah.
She was
We were just
abbreviating
there.
it. So it was fun to have that in the book.
They have the best food, and oh my gosh, I love them so much. And so I created a little cafe in Pelican Harbor that was similar. So and it had all the same cool stuff, and I love Irish food, and so yeah, that was fun.
Okay, the next question is, can you tease a little bit more the next book that you're writing together? Rick?
Sure. Well, I'll give a little bit more of a teaser for She Will End This, which Colleen's talking about a little bit.
Okay.
Young woman, her father dies of Huntington's. It's a genetic disease, a terrible genetic disease. She and her mother have some tension about whether she should get tested for it. She goes ahead and does it. And the testing company says, since we're doing your DNA anyway, we'll upload you for free up to one of these genealogy websites. So she does that. And then she gets a call from the FBI, and they say, we need to talk to you about your father. And she said, my father died of Huntington's a couple of years ago. And the agent says, no, your father is a vicious killer, and we need to talk to you about him this instant. And that's what leads to her getting kidnapped by a robo taxi and all the other fun stuff that Colleen was talking about.
Yeah, and a fun fact, not so fun in how really worked out. But I was really interested in having something with Huntington's disease. My sister-in-law, who died of breast cancer in 2020, she had, they say that's a 50% chance that if you have a parent that the children could have Huntington's disease. But in my sister-in-law Mary's case, both of her children had Huntington's disease. And so, and you have to do through all this testing before you can before they will even tell you if you have the gene and that is in your future. So that was an interesting little play on the pickle Britt found herself in on. Her mother didn't want her to be tested, and a cousin did, and so you get all these different opinions. And my sister-in-law's grandchildren still have not been checked because they don't want that to color their future, because none of us know how long we have. And so, it was an interesting little layer of all life is precious and none of us know how long we have. And you can't make judgments on whether a life is valuable or not valuable, depending on how long they're going to have. So that was an interesting little thread that we were able to put into that story.
Okay, the next question was, how did you come up with the name Savannah?
Well, we have one of our team members is a Savannah, and it's a very Southern name, and I loved it. So and names are really funny to me. Sometimes I'll choose a name and I'll be halfway or 3/4 of the way through the story and it isn't right. There's something about it that just doesn't feel right. But Savannah.
You mean like the book we're writing now, Colleen?
Yes, kind of like the book we're writing right now, Rick. So, oh dear, he outed us. So, anyway, that's where we were going with that.
Mm-hmm.
Savannah was perfect, and Rick came up with the Hezekiah.
Yeah, it was going to be Hezekiah, and you just started referring to him as Hez, and I'm like, that's actually the perfect nickname. Yeah,
Yeah.
We settled on the names for those two right away.
Yeah, we did.
And that was an example of characters whose names you didn't change.
Yes, exactly. That's right, Becky.
They got to keep their names.
They got to keep their names. That's right.
All right, the next question is, I started reading Lynette Eason as an author, and her writing led me to read you as an author. What authors inspired you when you started out writing?
Well, I've been writing a long time, and there wasn't very much mystery or suspense back when I first started writing. It was mostly prairie romance and that kind of thing. But my own bent was always to write suspense and mystery because that's what I grew up on, and that's what I loved in the general market. So all the Agatha Christie stories and Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys and all of that. And so I always wanted to write that. And then, so I started writing like prairie romance and small romances, but I really always wanted to kill people. I can't, I can't, I don't know why. It's what gets stuck in the brain. I wanted to do that. And then Dee Henderson came out with some romantic mysteries, and they were really good. And so that was a little bit of an inspiration that the market would bear that kind of thing, what I really wanted to write. So I started working on my Rock Harbor series, which was supposed to be 3 books, and readers have loved that setting so much that there are now 11 with spin-offs. And those have been very fun to write. And my agent kicked it to the curb without a trace to the curb for a solid year before she gave it to any publishers. And I wasn't sure it was ever going to happen, but then it did. So.
Yeah, and for me, Randy Singer and Robert Whitlow really paved the way for legal thrillers in the Christian market. And so I owe a huge debt to them. They're both fantastic authors. And in general market, I had always loved the spy stuff, the international intrigue stuff, Tom Clancy's books, John Le Carré's books, Frederick Forsyth's books. So in my solo books were always kind of a mix of those two. You had the legal thriller, but there always some international thing or some techno thriller thing that I just fell in love with.
Awesome.
Okay, the next question is from Brianne. Sorry, everybody, we haven't been saying names. We've been going too fast. And I'm going to add something to this just so we keep it short. Give us your elevator portion of this instead of a pitch. But can you tell us a little bit of how you came to know Christ?
I was in a bad auto accident, and one of the boys had been drinking, and one of them was killed. And we were there had been ice on the road, and we were driving home from a birthday party, and it was in the era before car seats, and I was holding my daughter, and I heard Dave say, "Oh no," or "Look out." And I looked up, and this car was coming directly at us. And in that moment, I knew I was going to die, and I did not know Jesus. And I'd been going to Sunday school with my grandmother forever. But in that moment, I knew that I was not going to go to heaven. Luckily, the Lord spared us. And the first people that stopped after the accident were Christians and rode with us in the ambulance and rode with Cara. We had separate ambulances because there were so many people that were injured. And God saved us and did a miraculous work.
My story's not nearly as good. I'd been raised Christian, but it wasn't real. I'd never really thought it through. And then there's some stuff going on in my life when I was a freshman in college that really made me questioning things. And frankly, it was reading C.S. Lewis's works. I'm like, wow, it really makes sense. This is something I can really hold on to. And I became a Christian then, met my lovely bride not long thereafter, and she was a very strong Christian who also loved C.S. Lewis. And it's been, that really is what turned my life turned my heart really towards Christ.
Okay, Chris asked, Rick, did having your perspective have a big impact on the male characters like Hez and the others in this series?
I wrote the POVs. I think I did all the male POV scenes.
Oh, you
Colleen. Is that-
did.
You
So
did,
you wrote
yes.
all the male point of view scenes.
Yes,
Yeah.
you did.
Ah, okay. So a huge impact on the male characters.
Huge impact. Yep. And that was one of the other reasons that I thought we would make a really great team is because he could bring the male perspective, not just the attorney perspective, but the male perspective as well. While I did the female and a lot of the emotional stuff. And he brings a great male perspective. And he also usually writes, and not usually, but I think always you have written the villain scenes that are done. So
I'm a lawyer. It comes naturally.
yeah, you got that villain undertone, don't you?
Okay, I'm not sure who's asking this question. Sorry, we some of them got cut off, but I'll go ahead and ask because I think it's a great one. Out of every character you have written, which one are you most similar to?
For me, it would be Bree in the Rock Harbor series. I poured a lot of myself into her. Uh, I, I don't know why. I mean, it was that first suspense series and a series I thought about a long time and noodled on a long time, and so there was a lot of me in her. Yeah.
For me, that's a tough one. I would probably say Hez. I mean, I never had struggled with alcohol. But we did have, my wife and I did have a very stressful incident with our infant daughter when we were young, and that is part of pursuing justice has always been important to me, and it's why I'm in my current job. And I don't know. I mean, like the scenes from his perspective where he would talk about that were things that resonated with me personally. And I do occasionally have a little bit of a tendency to be a workaholic. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not on all fours, but he's probably the closest to me.
Colleen, since you don't fully plot ahead of time, Melissa is asking, do you ever have to walk away from writing because your characters are frustrating you or driving you nuts?
I sometimes just have to call. For those of you that don't know, Denise Hunter and I have been critique partners for 26 years now. So we've, and sometimes I'll just call her up and say, "Hey, okay, I've got this problem," and she knows my writing so well that she can immediately say, "Okay, what if you do this, or what if you do that?" And but no, I don't ever walk away. I don't have time to walk away. I got to get the book written. So Denise is always there, and Rick too. Since we've been writing together, Rick has been a great one to bounce ideas off of too. But Denise and I have been doing this together for a long, long time, and I would not be the writer I am today, but for Denise. And she has held my hand, and I've held hers, and we've walked this journey a long time together.
Oh, that was just for Colleen. Sorry. I was do both of you keep your Goodreads pages up to date with what you read and recommend?
I do. I mean, because I'm always reading. I've had I've heard writers say, "I don't read when I'm writing." I would give up writing before I give up reading. Reading is as necessary to me as breathing. And so I read on my Kindle when it's really easy to, when I'm done with a book, to rate it and all of those things. And that automatically updates to Goodreads. So,
Yeah. Colleen is more conscientious than I am. I don't update it as much as I should. But I should.
Okay, you've mentioned that you guys have some personal connections to some things like the Huntingtons that you included in this recent story. Do your books tend to include personal details that you have reference to in your real life?
for me, yes, it's a known thing in my family. Nothing is sacred. Whatever you do or say is likely to end up in a book. When my kids took up scuba diving, I had scuba divers. When my son got a Harley Davidson, I had a Harley riding hero. So yes, just plain no, yes. How about you, Rick?
Yep. No, in fact, Cody the dog, real
Oh.
dog. That's my daughter's dog, so I know him well, and that's how he wound up in the books, and the beignets and stuff like that.
He makes beignets.
Now mostly from Mix, but
All right. This is kind of connected. This is from Dan. Have either of you based a character off of a spouse or child of yours?
Well, pieces. Like I mentioned, our son, scuba diving and riding a Harley, and so there's pieces of that. And I love my family, so there's often little pieces of them that get brought into things. And my husband is a very protective, supportive man that I don't know what my life would be like without Dave. And so pieces of him always kind of are in my heroes in some small way. So. Yeah, I would say yes.
yeah, I would say the same thing. Not like directly transplanting them in, but for example, when we're writing Norwegian characters, my wife is Norwegian, born and raised over there. So, I'll be channeling some of the things I know about Norwegians from her. We did name the hero in our upcoming book after our son Stein.
Isn't that a great name? I love that name, Stein.
Yes.
I had to beg him to let us use it.
Okay, the next question is, when you're coordinating your writing, how do you do that? Through emails, through phone calls, in-person visits, Zoom meetings? How do you coordinate?
Yes. Yeah.
All the above. All the above.
Yeah, mostly emails and texts.
Yeah.
Just so we can have a record of stuff, and then we'll brainstorm that way, and then I'll typically, again, as I mentioned, once we have an idea of where we're going, I'll then go for a long walk with my wife, and we'll sort of organize all of that into scenes, and then I'll put together a scene outline, usually mining the texts and emails, which I'll send to Colleen to look over.
And Annette is like the third leg of our partnership, really. I mean, she edits both of us. She, makes sure everything is jockeying up together, and she brainstorms with Rick. And so Annette has been fabulous and wonderful, and I'm so thankful for her. So um, it, and then Rick is really good at like keeping all of the pieces organized, because I try to sort of forget him a little bit, because I am a pantser, and it spoils the fun if I know too much. So I try not to remember too much. I try to like let it go so that I can be surprised a little bit when we hit a twist that's coming up. It's like, okay, I'm not going to hold on to that. So because I usually don't know who the villain is when I'm writing by myself. And Rick breaks out in a cold sweat when we talk about it like that. So
Okay. Before I go to the next question, Ashton wanted you to know that her sister Tiffany can't make it tonight, but is watching the recording later. And she said she loves y'all and is happy to share that you are one of her most favorite authors. So I don't know if that's the two of you combined or just Colleen or just Rick, but there you go. So here's a next question. How much time do you spend on average a day writing?
By myself, I'll often spend 3 or 4 hours. But it's really easy with our planting, what we call our method, we call planting. It's like a combination of pantsing and planning it all out. Rick will have the scene kind of laid out, and I can write that scene in an hour. And that is great. I sometimes, maybe I shouldn't say sometimes, I probably almost always do a little bit of additional stuff in from what he's had, and we might go in a little different direction, but he's always okay with it. So that works out really well. But when we write a book together every 8 months, and I write a book by myself every 8 months, and so even when I'm working on a book with Rick, I'm also working on my story by myself. So I'm usually spending at least 3 or 4 hours a day working, but I love it. It's not really work. I always say I'm going to die with my fingers on the keyboard, and I hope that's the way I go, just like right there.
I mean, for me, I'm limited because I have a fairly demanding day job.
Yeah.
To during the week, hour, 2 hours per day is I can squeeze in that usually, except Mondays. I hate Mondays. But then
And I still bother him on Mondays anyway, but he usually answers in between meetings.
but then on the weekends, that's when I can really dig in and spend 5 or 6 hours. Not so much. I mean, writing, it'll typically take me, I'm not nearly as fast as Colleen. It'll take me 2 or 3 hours to write a scene. But there's going to be at least that much time, going for one of these long walks, doing the outlining afterwards, the research. And I think the same way for you too, Colleen, like, researching things. I was just the other day, I went down a rabbit trail on Russian first-person view attack drones. Spend a couple hours reading about that and looking at videos and stuff and that kind of thing.
Rick, you know how to have fun.
That's right.
And don't let him fool you. His long walks include Pokemoning.
Well, yes, thank you for bringing that up, Colleen. I really appreciate that.
So we probably have time for about 2 more questions.
Okay, great. Well, the next question segues from what you were just saying about your day job, Rick, because Denise wonders if you can tell us a little bit more about what you do during the day.
Sure. I am a supervising deputy attorney general in the corporate fraud section of the California Attorney General's office. So I prosecute financial fraud, basically large corporate fraud, which is a lot of fun, but is also can be time consuming.
Wow, I can imagine.
Wow,
And it gives him lots of great ideas for us to use. So
yeah, and once the
someday
stuff
down the
becomes
road,
public, we can talk about it. But there's
some
a
little
lot of stuff
twist
like
on it.
yeah.
Okay, the next question comes from Amy. She wants to know how long it takes you to write a story from start to finish.
I've done it in 6 weeks. But it was under duress. So I had a story that just had to be written very, very quickly, and I about died when it was over and done within that length of time. Normally, though, I can it's about 4 months for me.
Yeah, and that for us, beginning to end, I mean, if we've done it in 4 months, like we
We
did
did
with
it
I Think
with
I've
I Think
Murdered.
I Was Murdered. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we have the 8 months, but typically it's, if we're not pushing, it's about 6 months.
Hmm.
That's our basic pace.
Because we bounce back and forth. I'll write a female scene, he'll write a male scene or a villain scene, or and then he does a lot of work in the planning and the coming up together with the scenes and stuff. So
Yeah, I love hearing how you guys have this back and forth. You've got this really seamless process of really figuring out how it works to write as a team. And so that's really incredible and really a gift for both of you, because not everybody could do that and do it in the way that y'all are churning out these really um, finessed books. I mean, sometime you'll have to go back and read through the comments, because the amount of people who are like, I love the Tupelo Grove series, and are excited about the next one that you guys are working on together. There's a lot of love for your books in here. So
and
one
we love
last
you, readers. We're so
Mhm.
excited that you're here.
Oh, yeah, we love hearing this kind of stuff. This is very, very encouraging to us.
And
So
so
just,
one
very
last
good thing.
question
Mhm.
is, do you have a title for the new book? Because people are wanting to kind of watch for it and they're not sure if they missed it. So last question for each of you is, where can readers connect with you best online? And then what's the title of the book that they should be putting on their pre-order list?
She Will End This is the name of the next book coming out. And connect with me on Facebook. I love to talk to readers. Love it, love it. So come on over.
Yeah, same for me. I'm on Facebook. I'm on X and Instagram and Facebook and all the ones, but Facebook is the one where I'm most active.
Right. Same.
Yeah. And they both have websites that are their names, which is
Yep.
where you can keep up on books and get links for ordering and all that kind of stuff as well. So that's always a great place to go to be able to stay up to date on everything that's going on. But I'll never forget the first time I met Colleen, and she was like, email me. And I was like, she'll never email me back. And I think it was 5 minutes after I sent the email, she emailed me back. So when she says she loves interacting with readers, she seriously means it.
And Cara was just a reader, not just a reader. She was
Yeah.
showing up at a reader, and but for her husband, she might not have written a single one of her wonderful books. Eric said, "Did she tell you she wants to write?"
Yeah.
Immediately, I jumped in. Oh, well, let's talk about this.
Yeah, because we were just having this great conversation, but I was never going to tell you. I was going to be like, I just love your books.
Eric outed you.
He did. And look at what's happened all
That's
these
right.
books
Look at what's
later.
happened,
So,
Cara.
yeah, talk about supportive husbands. That's definitely a gift. But thank you so much, both of you, for being here. The Tupelo Grove series is fantastic. And where justice, sorry, my computer just did something weird. But where justice, when
When
justice
justice
comes,
comes.
yeah, When Justice Comes is a fantastic book and a wonderful opportunity for everybody to see how the series ends and get caught up and get ready for the next book. And the Sanctuary series is ending soon, very, very soon. And it'll be fun for those of you who enjoy Tupelo Grove, because you'll see Savannah and Hez in a very special way in the end of that series. But in April, we have Robin Lee Hatcher's next book, To Find Where She Belongs. And I know some of you are reading it now and are getting ready for it because you're reading back through the series. So in this one, guilt followed her across an ocean and grace called her home. And desperate to leave Hook Manor, Keely Boyle does what she feels she must in order to flee England for America, hoping to make a new life with the help of a man who befriended her years ago. But when she arrives at Eden's Gate, a large cattle ranch in the shadow of the Tetons, it is William Overstreet who offers her a fresh start. When Keely's secret sin is exposed, her world and the love she's come to cherish teeters on the edge of ruin. But through danger and redemption, both she and William will find that belonging isn't a matter of where they stand, but whose grace holds them fast. So set against the rugged beauty of 1890s Idaho, To Find Where She Belongs is a tender story of redemption, love, and the God who can turn even our deepest shame into belonging. So we hope you will join us on the last Tuesday in April for our conversation with Robin Lee Hatcher about her book, To Find Where She Belongs. Thank you again for joining us, Colleen and Rick, and thank you to all of you. There were over 140 of you here tonight. And so thank you for joining us and helping us have this incredible conversation with Colleen and Rick. And as we close, I'll just say a quick prayer over us. Father, I just thank you for the gift of words and for the opportunity to partner with you in bringing stories to life, both as writers and as readers. I just ask that you would go with us into the rest of our weeks, and may all that we say and do always be to your honor and your glory. In your son's name, amen.
Amen.
All right. Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
everybody. Love y'all.